Evening, everyone. Started. It is Monday, October 13th, 2025. It's slightly after 5:30 p.m., and this is a public meeting of the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors of the Education Service Center and on the district website. A copy was also sent to the West Bend Community Memorial Library, the Daily News, WRYU, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. And I'll pause to ask Superintendent Wimmer to confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Great, thank you. Please rise and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. We recognize a quorum of our board with 5 board members present. June Kruger and Chris Jenkins both have excused absences. We look forward to seeing them at a future meeting. Next on our agenda is to consider the approval of the agenda, which was posted in advance. I would move to approve this agenda. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Chad. Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Our agenda is approved. That motion carries. We're early into our new year and time for some new student representatives for the board. And so we're introducing first Jen Potter, our executive principal, to introduce our student reporters.
Well, thank you so much for having us here tonight. I am so excited to be here to introduce our new school board representatives for this school year. So before I begin, I'm just going to tell you that they had a grueling tryout process for this. So if you remember our school board reps from last year, they had to sit on a panel and present to us the things, do you remember this?
Yes.
The things that they thought were important to share with you guys so we could get a good vibe about how they engage with school and the things that they find important. This led into a really cool initiative for us where they also run our Monday Scoop. So you might not know this, but every Monday morning, we put out something to all of the students, and these 3 make this happen for our students every single Monday with the important stuff going on, making sure kids are informed. And I will say wholeheartedly, they really care about our school. They are great, great people, so I would love to introduce them to you now. And also, I think they told you 2 of them are going to the National Honor Society induction right after this, so we're going to try to get them in and out today, but they're happy to stay with you as long as possible in the coming times here. So Bella Downs, Bella, if you could step forward. She is our new school board representative. She's the president of Student Council, a 3rd-year cross-country runner, a member of concert choir and the school musical, part of crew, and an active member of the WBSD Way Student Union. Bella is also a member of the National Honor Society and will be officially inducted after tonight's board meeting. Quinn Matthew is a junior who is actively involved also in Student Council, the WBSD Way Student Union, and both tennis and softball for East High School. Outside of school, she plays community softball and volunteers each summer at our elementary school program, helping to teach Spanish. Quinn is also a member of the National Honor Society and is being inducted tonight as well. And last we have Haley Kister. She is a senior who some of you may remember from last year's end of the year presentation. She took it on and stepped right up and into it. In addition to being a goalie on our East soccer team, Haley serves as a student leader in the WBSD Way Student Union, working alongside Bella and Quinn to produce our weekly Monday Scoop for students. She's going to kick us off tonight with a presentation by sharing updates about student life and academics. So welcome these 3.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, hi. Our freshmen had a great time on September 12th at Frosh Fest. They played yard games, enjoyed pizza, and had fun in the bounce houses. It was a great way to build connections and start the year with energy and excitement. On the first day of school, TMJ4 News visited East to interview a small group of students about life at our school. They highlighted athletics, clubs, and co-curriculars. Students who participated in the interview included Tatiana Patrick, Bella Downs, Anna Pop, Noah Becker, Van Wiedmeyer, and myself. Our seniors gathered on the football field on Friday, September 12th for Senior Sunrise, a special tradition to kick off their final year. We watched the sunrise while enjoying snacks and conversations with friends. My favorite part was picking up my friends, getting coffee, and bouncing around talking to different groups across the field. There are some cool things happening in our library this fall. We're hosting Blackout Poetry, where students take a page from a book or poem and black out words to create their own poem. There's also a free book cart giving students the chance to take home gently used books and make room for new arrivals in the library's collection. Our crew members helped welcome new students during Freshman Mini Day on Wednesday, August 27th. The event was designed to help freshmen and any students new to the district feel comfortable in the building, meet staff, and connect with upperclassmen mentors. The day included a welcome assembly, building tours, class schedule walkthroughs, and crew activities, all focused on helping every student start the year feeling supported and confident. Students in grades 9 and 10 took the pre-ACT on September 18th, and an optional PSAT opportunity will be offered to sophomores and juniors on Thursday, October 23rd. We wrapped up homecoming week last week with dress-up days, a parade, and a dance. This year's theme was Lights, Camera, Action. Congratulations to our entire homecoming corps, and a special shout out to our East King and Queen, Brett Wagenknecht and Tatiana Patrick, and our West King and Queen, Javon Hayes and Braylon Haubrick, for representing their schools so well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bella. I'll be talking about our clubs and co-curriculars. Our West Bend High School has 44 clubs and co-curriculars. Crew kicked off the school year for the freshmen. Stuco has been working tirelessly to prepare for homecoming, and Key Club made tie blankets for their September meetings to donate to the Washington County Foster Closet. With the Crew and Freshman Mini Day, Crew is a student organization with over 110 junior and senior leaders who put on the new Student and Freshman Mini Day every year. This year it was held on Wednesday, August 27th, and it served as a day designed to help freshmen and any new to the district students feel comfortable in the building and meet staff and connect with upperclassmen mentors. She already said that, okay. And then Annie had happened on October 2nd. That was a production that several of our students were in. It was put on by Spotlight Productions. Their opening night was October 2nd, including Braylon Haubrick, Clayton, and Makasia Emery. I don't know how to say his last name, being so honest. I'm just not going to try. And then coming up is Puffs. So this year, our high schools are putting on the fall play Puffs. Puffs is a comedic show revolving around the happenings at a certain school of magic taking place over 7 years. Rehearsals have begun with performances taking places November 14th, 15th, and 16th.
I'm Quinn, and I'm going to be talking about the athletics. Both girls' tennis teams had made it to sectionals. From West, Sophie Gish from won singles, and a special shout out to our senior because she also made it to state. Sophie and Ava made it to 1 doubles, and Maddie Bunkelman made it at 3 singles. From East, Nora DeVries made it from 1 singles. On Thursday, West Soccer had a close game with Slinger winning 1-0, and tomorrow West will also be playing East. To kick off homecoming week, students participated in Powder Puff on Sunday, featuring girls flag football. The freshmen tied in 4 overtimes. East sophomores won, East juniors won, and East seniors also won. Keeping the homecoming spirit alive, Powder Buff was held on Wednesday, where the boys took the court for volleyball. West swept East at all grade levels with fun and spirited event. On Friday, we wrapped up homecoming with our homecoming football game, where West won 35-0. In volleyball, West swept East at all levels on Tuesday night. A big congratulations to Emmy Miller for achieving 1,000 career service receptions and breaking the career dig records with 1,488 digs, an incredible achievement. Thank you for listening to all the great things happening in our school.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're thrilled to have you. Thank you for your service and for your commitment. Ms. Potter, I was unaware there was such a rigorous trial process for this.
Well, you remember our board reps from last year, so they obviously created this process, and you can envision how that happens.
Well, we appreciate it very much, and thank you. You serve as a connection to our schools, between the board and the schools, and we appreciate it. We look forward to hearing from you in the future. And also, as Ms. Potter said, we understand that you often have other things going on. You are always welcome to stay for as much of our meeting as you would like, but we will never hold it against you if you need to sneak out, because we know you have other things going on too. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at future meetings. Appreciate your update. Thank you. Next on our agenda is public participation. I don't see any public participation comment cards, so we will move then to our consent agenda. We have a number of items on our consent agenda. I'll read them off. First, minutes of the September 8th, 2025 regular board meeting and executive session, minutes of the budget hearing for 2025-2026, minutes of the 106th annual meeting of electors, one contract, no resignations, no retirements. We have a Village of Jackson professional fee reimbursement agreement, Start College Now, Early College Credit Program, or ECCP, resource removal for former and outdated curriculum materials. We have the list of 2025-2026 out-of-state or out-of-country student trips, and then disbursements posted to October 10th, 2025. I believe that's the correct consent agenda. I'm seeing nods. With that said, are there any items that anyone wishes to discuss outside of the consent agenda? Hearing none, I would move to approve this consent agenda. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. Motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We've approved the consent agenda. We're on to reports, and our first report tonight is a construction report, and Tim Harder, our Director of Facilities and Technology, will give that report. Good evening.
All right, good evening, board members. It seems like a long time because we skipped a 2-week board meeting in there, so it's been a month since I've had an opportunity to update the board and the community on where we are at with some of our referendum projects and our construction updates. So as you see here, the picture that is on the front page is we have completed all windows at McLean in the academic portion of the building, and all that is left is we are working on that section where the gym is there on the northwest corner. So this is an outside view of what that looks like. And as I go to the next page here, it is amazing what happens when you take windows that are 3/4 closed with plywood and open them up and put glass in. And so at this point in time, we have 3 windows on the south side already put in. I was in the gym the other day, and one of the little kids said, like, we don't even need the lights. It's so bright in here. And I was like, you're right. Like you are, wait till the other window goes in and then the other 4. But besides the windows being put in at McLean, we are meticulously going through and doing the exterior door replacement up at Green Tree Elementary. So that our referendum project calls for all exterior doors to be replaced at Green Tree Elementary, except for the newest addition in the last referendum. And putting doors in existing buildings is always an interesting trial. A big shout out to staff at both buildings, but also our Green Tree team, where we are working on one vestibule door and another exterior door, and some little kids have to go out to different doors for playground time and so forth. But it is also amazing how much the kids are enthralled in looking at construction. Some of them may be skipping out longer to go to the bathroom in a few places and offering to help. But that process will take the next 2 and 3 weeks as we go through that. That's a door replacement, that's security features, that's glass within those doors, a variety of different locks and badges and alerting and so forth. If you were to stop by on second shift, you'll see a team of people at both buildings finishing PA installations. As part of our referendum, we did a fire alarm and PA upgrade at both buildings. Those tie into our security systems, our clock systems, and so forth at that point in time. At McLean, we are finishing up the last 2, quote, rooms of construction work. So there's an early learning room over there that we added an in-suite or in-classroom restroom. And then what the architects have named a super toilet, which is a fancy word for a toilet space that also has a changing facility to help students who may need with that. And so that was a renovation that we did by removing an older elevator. There are 2 elevators in that building. And instead of paying for upkeep for both of them, we're actually able to recoup that space and add that space for our students. And then when you imagine when you open windows like that have been closed for as long as they are, and you put that much glass in, we had to put new blinds in. And so those happen, that process happens shortly after each window is placed within the week, during the morning hours when teachers are not in classrooms, or in the evening hours. As we kind of ramp down a little bit and have less work being done physically at Green Tree and McLean, there's a lot of behind the scenes work. We know eventually we'll be sharing information with you about the high school timeline and some of those pieces that we just start to kick off design questions for that later this fall. However, our next set of projects really start with two smaller projects as our Silverbrook and Badger timelines. So this is a project that we've already been working on for the last month and a half, working on that design piece, working with our kindergarten teams of teachers who may be moving to Silverbrook, our special education teams, our Phy Ed and health teams over at Badger, around what those spaces look like. And you can see the slated projects and the rough estimated timelines. The nice part of this is we will access Badger over the summer. This next summer to do a fire alarm replacement. We will be doing a partial locker room remodel over there that was not touched in the last referendum to bring our restroom and shower area up to ADA. And that facility has the traditional large shower rooms that we probably all familiar with in middle school and high school. We'll actually recoup some of that space back for instructional space as we go through that. We'll also do the gym floor and bleacher replacement next summer. And then there's an area of the music wing that has some original doors in there that we will replace. And those doors are a specialty door because they're a insulated door for our music areas at that point in time. At Silverbrook, we'll reconfigure and add an addition of in-suite restrooms for the future kindergarten area over there. We will renovate a dedicated space for some of our district special education programs. And you'll notice that those timelines start in summer but don't end till winter of 26, 27. In our process of reconfiguration, as we hold our fifth graders next year at our elementary schools, we have the luxury of only having sixth grade at Silverbrook, which means we can shut down an entire wing of that building and do this construction in a little bit more of an off season and have a little bit more flexibility in that timeline. And then next summer, we'll also look at replacing the loading dock, which is original to that building in the back that has some structural concerns. The largest amount of our time and efforts lately has been really working on Jackson Elementary. And so I shared, where we were at a month ago, or a little over a month ago here. We are at the point where we're at what is called CDs or construction documents. So we are working through the last little walk through every single page. So 1 week is a meeting just about HVAC, then it's electrical, then it's casework, then it's finishes and so forth. We will open bidding for that project late November through January. That is managed by our construction partner, Findorf. They manage that. That is an open bidding process for any contractor who would like to bid. With the intent to start construction in spring of 2026. However, there might be the ability for us to start some of our demolition of that the existing buildings on that property. So there's the old firehouse and the old DPW building there prior to that time frame once we get things going. We are currently at a process where we go in front of the Village of Jackson's Plan Commission and then approval to the full board for three things. Number one is we need to rezone our land to fit what the village requires for a school to go on that. So that process has begun. We have to provide a certified survey map. And we actually own multiple lots that will get combined into one. That'll also mark out any easements for utilities that may go through there and so forth. And then the last one is the conditional use permit. And the conditional use permit is where you start to see the first public look of renderings and what the building will look like. And their plan commission, their village has the ability to make sure that the building meets the village codes and standards that go with it. And so on the next couple of pages here, I want to show you some renderings. These are draft renderings. Little things get tweaked over time. And so this is the first rendering, first image I have for you. This is the site layout, so that we're familiar with it. Is the upper north corner there is where the building will go. To the top of the screen would be Highway 60. To the left of that image is Jackson Drive headed south. You'll have a main entrance facing the west with a visitor parking lot, a nice long driveway to queue over 60 cars for drop-off in the morning and pick-up in the afternoon. If you've ever been around Jackson Elementary during drop-off and pick-off time, it's a little bit crazy down there. There's not that area for that queuing piece. You have a staff parking lot and busing to the east side, and then on the south, what you see looks like a playground and a parking lot is actually our playground, and then will also be marked for overflow parking when we have events in the evenings on the weekends, and then your green space further to the south where you see your Phy Ed spaces and outdoor spaces that go with that. So the first rendering and actual image that I have for you this evening is the front view if you were to stand on Jackson Drive looking towards the school itself. If you've seen different images out there, when you talk about little tweaks, the feedback was around the Jackson Elementary School. It was originally all red. To take some of that bright red out of that, we really focused on the Jackson being red with the elementary school being in gray. Parents who are dropping off would actually be coming from the right side of the building, dropping their children at the front of the building, and then working towards the left side of that image. You see the visitor parking lot in front of there, the main office, and then that wing to the left is the kindergarten and first grade wing. If you were actually dropping your child off and parking and looking out the side of your car, this is what you would see for the entrance of that building. Notice the original bell from the schoolhouse or from the village back in the day. You have an overhang there. You have a variety of seating spaces for students and visitors to our building, walking right into a main secure entrance, just like we are putting in at Green Tree and McLean, and following at other buildings and eventually at the high school. The courtyard portion of this, so the building is set with a V. This is what the courtyard would look like, looking south into that building. This will be a fenced off courtyard that will serve purposes of just play, but also a learning space outside. So you can see spaces for learning and so forth inside of that fenced in space. One of the nice parts of starting over with a new building and a new facility is the ability to work all of those safety features in up front. So this, much just like our playground, will be completely fenced in with additional security features, almost as if you were inside of a building. When you talk about exits and entry to those spaces and so forth through the fencing. So that looks through there. To the left side on the lower level is your grade 2-3 wing. The upper level is 4-5. Straight ahead at the bottom is where the library would go. In the upper portion up there to the top is where art and music is on the right, and then you have the kindergarten and first grade wing there on the right side. And then last but not least is the staff entry, or the back side of the building where you would see a separate bus drop-off for safety and security of our students. That would be the main spine that you would walk into, again, seeing that 2nd through 5th grade wings over there. And then to the left of that would be where you'd see our maintenance stuff, our loading dock area, or sorry, not a loading dock, but our garage door area, our electrical and so forth that would feed the building at that point in time. So we will actually go in front of the Plan Commission tomorrow evening to talk about our conditional use permit, and then Thursday evening for our rezoning and CSM application to the full village board, and then with approval from the Plan Commission tomorrow evening, next week we would go to the full board for our conditional use permit. Once that process is granted, that allows us to finish up those construction documents and then start our bidding process here in late November, early December. Questions I can answer this evening?
Great, thank you, Mr. Harder. Any questions, board members? I guess from a timeline perspective, we always talk about, okay, are there any things that are tight, or what's the most risky piece? I mean, it sounds like we've been doing pretty well, and I'm knocking on wood. Anything you care to share as it relates to timeline? How are we feeling?
I think overall, I mean, we just got to get through our approval process. We really are trying to get out to that bid late November, early December. We want to be the first ones or the early ones to the games for construction. That season, as you know, even just from our own capital maintenance projects that we bring to the board every year, we push that up every year. We really want to stay tight to that timeline to get out before those contractors are full. The nice part of having a year and a half for a building like this is we have built in some of those pieces. But at this point in time, it's really getting kicked off here in November and December is our target date.
Great. Other questions? We appreciate the update and look
you very
forward to
much.
more. Thank you. Next is our Curriculum Committee report, and Melanie Ergott, our committee chair, will give that report. Melanie.
All right, thank you. So on October 8th of 2025, the Curriculum Committee met to review proposed updates from the Career and Technical Education, Library Services, and Curriculum and Instruction departments. Tim Harder shared recommended changes from the CTE department, and Tim Harder and Pam Mumm also presented a draft of the West Bend School District Library Plan. Both of these will be the discussion for tonight. And then Kelly Downs shared a proposed revision to music theory course prerequisites to expand access to general music theory and support a broader pathway into honors music theory. The request to remove the prerequisite of junior or senior standing to enroll in general music will be brought forward as a consent agenda item on October 27th, unless the board wishes the item to be brought forward for further discussion. This concludes my report.
Great, thank you. So board members, and if you could just repeat that, Melanie, that's the, talked about the requirement being in consent agenda, which sounds good to me, but maybe you can read that one more time, see if the board members have any objections.
Yeah, it's just
The proposed revision to music theory course prerequisites to expand access to general music theory and support a broader pathway into the honors music theory. So the request is to remove the prerequisite of junior or senior standing to be able to enroll in the general music, is what will be brought forward, so
Great.
that they can enroll at an earlier grade level and have more options.
Perfect.
Moving
Board
forward.
members, any objections to that being on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll take care of it that way. Thank you. We appreciate your update and appreciate the committee's work. Any other questions for Melanie? All right. With that, we'll move then to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Wimmer.
So you heard from our students, but we are just fresh off an amazing homecoming week. So just thank you to all of those students, staff members, families, and community members for your enthusiastic support during homecoming week. So everyone gets involved. If you're at the elementary, you've got spirit days, so the creativity shines with dress-up days, pep rallies, the parade for our community, the football game, fireworks, and the dance that follows over the weekend. So it was a great celebration. Congrats to West for their victory on the field, and they also earned the Spirit Stick from all their activities during the week. Special congratulations to the West volleyball team, whose float took first place in the homecoming parade float contest. And then also a congratulations. Preceding the game that evening is the Athletic Hall of Fame induction. So we had the privilege of honoring 10 exceptional alumni. I am not going to read all of their accomplishments. I'll highlight their names, but I would encourage you to go to our website and look at our district news so you can see. Too many to list tonight, but I just want to congratulate Jeff Baker, West Bend East, class of 1993. Erica Winbucci, West Bend West, class of 2014. Sam Blahnik, West Bend East, class of 1995. Brad Burns, West Bend West, class of 1984. Nathan Burns, West Bend West, class of 2017. I need to pause. We had some in the 2000s, and then I felt really old that they're being inducted into a Hall of Fame. I'm like, ooh. Rick Burry, West Bend West, class of 1985. Katie Hillman Johansky, West Bend East, class of 1995. Alex Rondorf, West Bend West, class of 2018. I took great pride in watching former East football coach Mr. Rondorf wearing West colors that evening, so thank you for that. Lisa Zukowski-Schell, West Bend East, class of 2000, and Ryan Whiter, West Bend West, class of 2000. So just congratulations on that honor. It was a pleasure to participate in that induction ceremony prior to the game. We're also proud to share that 40 West Bend School District employees participated in the United Way campaign kickoff, joining over 400 local volunteers to pack more than 15,000 snack packs for children in our community. So as a result, the West Bend School District received 60 boxes of snacks to support our students across the district. It's just a great example of how community partnerships directly benefit our students and our community. So thank you to the United Way, to our staff for their service and generosity. Speaking of staff, it's a great place to work. We continue to seek dedicated individuals to join our team. Current openings include special education aides, school nutrition staff for both breakfast or lunch, athletic coaches, and other various support roles across the district. So spread the word and go to our website under employment opportunities of our, so you can apply online. So check that out and spread the word. I wanted to update you on some high school work following valuable input from students, family, staff, and a collaborative committee based of our senior students and high school staff. They reviewed feedback on the timing of this year's graduation ceremony. So at the end of the year, we get out on a Tuesday. Our graduation is generally on a Sunday, and it pushed it very late. So they did a lot of work seeking feedback, looking to those who would be impacted by the decision, and the committee is formally recommending moving graduation to Sunday, June 7th, in lieu of a later Sunday. It would have been the 14th or so. So this changes the end of year schedule because of that Tuesday. It changes our seniors' kind of end of year. We looked at how many students were really impacted by exams. Many of our seniors are exempt from exams, so it was very minimal impact. So again, that collaborative committee of students, high school staff, Also then developed kind of end-of-year schedule where it's cutting short that last day of classes, all their culminating assessments, so that they could graduate for June 7th. So the high school put out kind of a final letter to families and students, like this is what that plan looks like. Do you have any last feedback before we move it forward to the board? But we would bring that to you October 27th for you to formally take action and approve that. But it's well vetted. They have a communication plans if we were to make that change that would go right behind this, and we've vetted that they ensure that they meet the required minutes of instruction from the Department of Public Instruction. So we're ready to go with that change without any negative impact to those learners, so.
May I just pause there? Board members, any initial comments on that? We'll see that formally for action, but it sounds like the process was thorough.
Yeah, that was one of the things the board held us to was high engagement. If we're going to look at any kind of change, making sure that it was a collaborative process, which Jen Potter, the executive principal, has led and facilitated with multiple opportunities for feedback. In fact, she did tell the kids told her, like, don't survey us again. Just move, like, we gave you our feedback and they're ready to go. So they put that kind of, okay, here's what that proposal looks like then. Any lingering questions or things they need to do, so.
Then we'll see that on a future agenda. Great, thank you.
That concludes my report.
Any other questions for Superintendent Wimmer? All right, hearing none, we move then to discussion items. Our first discussion item tonight is budget and tax levy recommendation, and Lenny Hansen, our Assistant Superintendent, will walk us through this item. Good evening.
Good evening. We're coming near the end of this long process of creating the budget for the 2025-26 school year, and then that also goes hand in hand with the tax levy. So this process really comes to a conclusion at the end of this month. So we're going to quickly review where we've been and then talk about next steps and how the budget and tax levy can impact individual property owners here in the district. So a real quick review of the past few months, and if you attended our annual meeting, I want to thank you. We covered some of what you'll see here at the annual meeting, and now we're just expanding on a few key points and some common questions we get. So again, the preliminary budget was approved by the school board in June. State budget is signed into law after that. We've talked about kind of the oddness of that timing, but that's the case in every school district throughout Wisconsin. Throughout July and August, some preliminary state data is released that gets integrated into the budget. In September, we had our annual meeting where we proposed the budget as well as the levy. So the next steps are, in a couple of days is a big day every year. October 15th is when a lot of really critical data points get released by the state. Now we have preliminary numbers on all of these, but the final data gets released then. Sometimes they don't move at all from the preliminary data, and sometimes they move drastically. Then at the October 27th board meeting, the final budget and tax levy recommendation will come forward to the board for approval. And then upon approval, the levy information is sent to municipalities, which then prepare it to go out on tax bills in December. So some of the key highlights that we talked about at the annual meeting we've been talking about are the mill rate is projected to remain flat at $6.14. A balanced general fund budget is proposed, and the fund balance remains healthy. And for more information on those, please refer back to the annual meeting recording and slides. There's a lot of information in there about that. You'll recall this slide from the annual meeting. It is our mill rate history. So you'll see that even with referendum expenses included, our mill rate is still substantially below kind of that historical norm that you saw just, 4 or 5 years ago at $6.14. When you were back in these years here, you were hovering right around $8, just under or just over back then. So a couple of common questions I want to just go over tonight for everybody, and this is probably the most common question here. Does a flat mill rate mean my property tax bill will not change? And I would love for that to be an easy answer, but we're going to go through the implications of that. So the short answer is not necessarily. Your individual property tax bill can go up or down or stay the same if the mill rate stays flat. And we're going to talk about why. There's several factors that impact that. Below here, if you go on our website, and we have a lot of information about understanding how schools are funded, is the general simplified formula for how you calculate a mill rate. And we're going to break down a few of the factors that play a role into that help explain why it's not as easy as just saying, well, the mill rate stayed the same, so my taxes stay the same. It's not quite that simple. They might stay the same, they might go down, or they could go up. So let's talk about that. So there are some key factors here, 4 key factors that impact property tax bills. So one might be the change in that taxpayer's individual property value, okay? The next can be the change in your municipality's total property value. So let's say you live in the town of Barton, the total property value of all of the town of Barton, if that changes, that can impact your property tax bill. And then, to make it even more complex, the state formula also says, okay, it might be the change in your municipality's property tax value compared to the municipality right next to you that's also in the West Bend School District. So if you live in the town of Barton, well, maybe your property value stayed exactly the same, and you're like, hey, we must be staying the same. Well, not if next door in the city of West Bend, their property values went up or down. Now, in relation to them, there's a change, and that can adjust your property tax value. And then finally, that amount of tax levy. And that's whether it is any of the taxing authorities, whether the school district, the technical college, the county, the city, all of those impact what your bill is that you ultimately see on your tax bill. So when we talk about that first item, your individual property value, that can be impacted by a number of things. If you did an addition, construction project, that obviously leads to a change in assessment, which can change your property value and therefore result in a change in property taxes. A change in the condition can also impact, although those are far less common, or something that is more common, a reassessment, which you see every few years, can really adjust an individual person's property value. So if any of those took place on your property over the last year, that might result in an impact on what your property tax bill is for the school district and all of the taxing authorities, regardless of the mill rate staying the same. So then we talk about the municipality as a whole, right, and what their property value is. And we'll look at some of those numbers in a moment, but who determines what that total is? So the State Department of Revenue determines that. So they look at all property values across the entire state and assess a total value for each municipality. Now, what is an interesting nuance to that is that some of the municipalities that we serve are actually split between multiple school districts. So, for example, the town of Polk is partly in the West Bend School District and then also broken into some other school districts, or several others that the town of Jackson, for example, is in multiple different school districts. So that becomes a nuance that also kind of complicates this. But they'll give a total amount of value to a municipality's property. This is the school, all the properties within the school district, the property value growth that we've seen over the years. The West Bend School District has had high property growth compared to the state average over several years. So for example, this year, the state average increase in property growth was high overall, 8% across the state, but in our school district, it's projected to be even greater than that at 9.3%. It's really a combination of factors that you can think play into property value in terms of strong economy here, strong access to jobs, and strong, well-maintained properties, as well as business expansion and things like that that are taking place in our community. All good things, all help spread the property tax levy across more properties, which can have a favorable impact on a property taxpayer, all other things being equal. I shared this graph at the annual meeting, but we're going to expand on it a little bit. This is the share of property value in the district by municipality. So certainly the city of West Bend is a large portion of our value, but it's actually only right about half. The other half of our property value is spread between the other several municipalities that we serve. You can see there that the property value increase projected by the state is to go from $8 billion for all property, all houses, businesses, everything in the whole district, to $8.7 billion this year. That number is not final, though. That number is one of those figures that comes out 2 days from now on October 15th. This is the projected change in those property values for each municipality for the coming year. So you can see they're all over the map, right? And this, when you look at that change, don't think that is a trend that plays, true for that municipality every year. So you see a huge increase in the town of Jackson, 14% increase in property value. Some years the town of Jackson might be at the bottom of that increase. Okay, it's very dependent from year to year. But the reason this matters is that third point that we talked about, how much your municipality's property value increased compared to the others is going to substantially impact whether your tax bill stays the same, goes up, or goes down. And that's where we get to this fun chart that I am going to expand on a little bit. So we shared this at the annual meeting. This is the cumulative change in property value for our 5 largest municipalities going back to 2020. So you can see some years there's big jumps, right? So Town of West Bend here in 23, 24 had a huge jump. They had a much larger increase in property value than the others. That probably, all other things being equal, would have resulted in a taxpayer in the town of West Bend having a larger increase in their property tax bill compared to maybe at that same time. You can see this orange line, which is the city of West Bend, kind of flattened out. That might have meant that the city of West Bend taxpayers might have seen a decrease as the relation was very inverse there. So I have another graph that maybe explains that a little bit better. So here's what we anticipate this year, that increase in property value being by each municipality, right? So we talked about the town of Jackson being the highest at 14.4%. And then you see here, the town of Polk being our lowest increase. I put a line here for what that average across the district we foresee being at 9.3%. Again, you can't predict it property by property. However, if you are down here in Polk's range, your property tax bill probably tends to veer more towards the lower end compared to some of the ones that are above the line, right? So City of West Bend this year is below the line. Does that mean all City of West Bend taxpayers are going to see a decrease in property taxes? No, it doesn't. But some of them might when you're looking at just that one factor of your property value in relation to others. Long and short of this is, when someone asks me, will my property taxes go up? The answer is, it's complicated. Let's look at your property, right? Because everybody's has its own unique set of factors, unique set of municipality factors, and unique set of municipality compared to municipality factors, right? And I take those phone calls from citizens regularly, and we're happy to talk through that with citizens and explain how those numbers come together. So common question number 2, well, okay, maybe property taxes go up sometimes, but doesn't state aid help reduce my property taxes? And the answer is yes, if state aid increases. Okay, so let's talk about that. This year, state aid that was in the state budget did not increase for the first time in 8 years. Pretty unusual. Usually you'll see that happen in a year where maybe the state is facing a big deficit or something like that. You know, in 2010, when Act 10 came down, the state was facing a $3 billion shortfall, right? This year, that wasn't the case, actually. The state was sitting on multiple billions in surplus, and actually, even after the state budget is still sitting on over $700 million in surplus. So it was somewhat unexpected that was just the route that they went, but they allocated those dollars in other ways, just not to state aid for schools. That same state budget increased the revenue limit by $325 per student, which means that increase in per student spending, since it's not coming from state aid, instead comes from property taxes. This is a phenomenon that is the same universally across all 421 school districts in Wisconsin. This is not a unique to West Bend situation. We have this on our website as well. It kind of simply breaks down, okay, what I just said. Where does our revenue limit authority come from? In general, it's coming from either state aid, sometimes called equalization aid or equalized aid, and property tax. Between those two, they add together to become the revenue limit authority of the district. Generally, if one goes up, the other goes down, and they're inversely related that way. So you also have to remember, let's say the state did increase the pot for equalization aid. I believe it's going to be $5.8 billion that the state allocates to all 421 school districts for equalization aid. So even if that goes up, the state aid funding formula has to also favor you to experience that. So even though state aid is not going up as a whole pot, some districts this year are seeing an increase. The majority are seeing a decrease. So 2/3 of school districts in the state are receiving less state aid this year than they did last year due to how the funding formula works. That means those 2/3 of districts will have to shift more of the tax burden over to the property tax end versus the state aid side of that formula. We are in preliminary projections in July from the state projecting about a 5.5% in aid, reduction in aid for the West Bend School District. So we are in that 2/3 of districts. Another one of those big numbers that's going to come out in 2 days. Here is the history of equalization aid. So you can see it really does fluctuate. This is for our district, not across the state. So depending on how the funding formula works for us, we can see increases, decreases. It is dependent on a wide range of factors that would take us quite a while to go through tonight. So why is the West Bend School District receiving less state aid, which causes more of a shift towards the property tax side? For a number of reasons. That strong property value growth in our district actually works against you in the state aid formula. Basically, the state aid formula tries to prioritize first districts that perhaps have lower property values because of perhaps their that community's less ability to pay for the cost of schools. Another piece that factors in is when you have more cost per student, that actually works in your favor often in the funding formula. Well, other districts are increasing their costs faster than the West Bend School District. That's not really a choice of ours per se. We pretty much tax to what the revenue limit authority is. However, when you hear about all of these operational referendums happening in different districts, that increases those districts' costs and actually will favor a school district in the state aid funding formula, which is a little odd. They have to be of a certain type of property value, but for example, probably what's impacting more school districts across the state more than anything is, so the West Bend School District's projection is a decrease of around $1.8 million in state aid. Milwaukee Public Schools, which passed a large operational referendum, is projecting more than a $77 million increase in state aid on top of their operational referendum. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that since their cost per student is increasing and their property value per student is low, the aid formula funnels more money in their direction, right? So all of these major operational and facility referendums you see throughout the state, they actually draw more funding away from the pot because those referendum funds are considered shared dollars for all of the state. And that means state aid decreases for districts like ours. Now you might say, didn't we pass a facilities referendum? And that is true, which really speaks to the fact that even in spite of our increased cost with the facilities referendum, our costs are still not keeping pace with what the average is increased costs across the state of Wisconsin, which is fascinating, right? So for us, shows good. We are investing in our facilities, but we're also cost per student staying below where the average is across the state. So, good stewardship. Again, a lot of those things are kind of out of our control, but it does show that we're, offering our programs and providing our taxpayers a good value. So are some other districts in the area seeing this phenomenon of less state aid? The answer is yes. So there's 8 school districts in Washington County. Only 1 district is projecting an increase. The average of the other 7 districts, including West Bend, is basically a 10% decrease in state aid. So this is not a phenomenon that is unique to us. And then I shared this chart at the annual meeting as well. This shows how state aid has increased, the blue line and the left axis. So it's been increasing pretty consistently for several years. But this is, the red line is how much aid the West Bend School District has been receiving, and that's represented on the right axis. So really, that state funding formula has not really resulted in this increase in the general pool of dollars the state has allocated really being directed towards our community. And instead, you've probably seen a larger share heading towards property tax. However, due to the management of the mill rate that we've had, we've still been able to lower the mill rate from where it was back here when it was in the $8 range. In spite of that flat, overall aid number, we've been able to manage the mill rate and actually reduce it by over $1. So that's a lot of information, but hopefully it makes clear that it's not a simple answer to those questions. We do project the mill rate to be flat. We will know for sure how that lands on Wednesday when all that data comes out, but our current projection is for that to remain flat, and then we'll come forward with that final budget and levy recommendation 2 weeks from now. So, Mr. Pickler, you're an accountant, maybe you enjoyed that more than most people who are watching, but hopefully it explained some of the nuance to the funding and how your tax dollars end up funding our schools.
Joe?
Yeah, usually you're, as an organization, you're rewarded for being a good steward of funds, and it feels like the opposite in this case. So it is fascinating, though.
No comment.
No, we appreciate the thorough discussion. This is consistent and is built over the years. And I know you get questions from time to time from the public. I think these are great resources. Do we make resources available to our public?
So
Can you talk
on-
about that a bit?
On the finance section of the webpage, we have a whole, School Finance 101 slide deck that goes through a lot of this. We'll post this as well. And we'll probably start to pair some of this, especially once the final recommendation is made, with some screencasts and recorded pieces so that people can listen to me at double speed and they don't have to sit there for however long I've been standing up here. But we want to make that accessible to people. We're also working on a document that we would post of kind of just how to read your tax bill, right? Because when you really look at your tax bill, there's a whole lot on there that the average person or even the generally informed person might struggle to understand. The school levy tax credit, you always see it in the corner. Nobody outside of a few hundred people that work in school districts will probably tell you what it is, but it is a tax deduction that goes to you as a property taxpayer that is because of your schools. So some of those things we like to educate the public about, because it's not always intuitive in the many ways that taxes are being avoided through different, or tax burden is being avoided for our community. So we like to explain that as well.
No, I think it's a good resource. I think it'd be good to publish. And thank you also for fielding questions from the public from time to time as to, hey, how does this work? Other thoughts?
Yeah, I
Melanie?
was just going to say, I think that this is a great resource, because I feel like a lot of times people hear like, oh, the mill rate's staying the same, my property taxes should be the same, right? And there's just so many variables. So I think this is really helpful for anybody that's wondering that. So thank you.
Any other questions on this presentation? We appreciate your presentation very much. Thank you. We move then to next discussion item, the district library plan, and we welcome Mr. Harder back to the podium, as well as, I believe, Pam Mum, our district library coordinator. I hope I have that correct. Yes. Please come forward.
All right, good evening. Lenny, I'm going to add all my times up tonight to see if it's longer than yours, just so you know. So, good evening, board. It's always fun to be back. I said this at the curriculum committee, to talk about more than construction sometimes. So this evening, I have Pam Mum with us. She's our library media coordinator. Pam joined our district recently, a little over a year, and has already engaged in making some updates to our processes here, tackled what it's like to have your couple of libraries used as a storage space, and moved a few things around this summer during construction. She's also tackled a large need that we have in our district, is updating a library plan. And so this is something that's been around the state for years, kind of went away a little bit, kind of came back, and now it's something that we are working on updating. And the purpose of a library plan is really overarching. It is really to target, after going through a process, what are our large goals over the next couple of years. And as you know, and as I was up talking before about construction and reconfiguration, our library plan is really about two things. The large goals are around reconfiguring our libraries with our collections to meet the needs of our new reconfiguration. And then what is that scope and sequence of lessons and learning opportunities that our kids get from the littlest of ages all the way through their opportunities and services up at our high school library. So Pam utilizes a framework called the Future Ready Framework. It is the same exact style and framework that we use for a district technology plan. The way that this process works, she engages feedback from her staff and other people. We present this plan to you, and then once approved by the board, we actually file that with the state of Wisconsin as a piece of our planning here. And really, you'll see the plan, and I'll turn it over to Pam here. She'll talk through the different pieces of it, of where we're at, where we're going, what our focus is. Talk a little bit about the funding avenue of that. So about 98%, 95% of our budgets for libraries comes directly from the state through something called Common School Funds, which is focused on providing services and materials to our kids. The other little percentage is your operational pieces, from everything from paper clips to tags for books and barcodes. That comes from our District Fund 10 allocation at that point in time. So I will turn it over to Pam this evening, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so when I started engaging in this process, I used the Future Ready Libraries framework, which is a strategic guide that helps school librarians align their programs with the broader goals of education, focusing on student-centered learning and literacy. I'm going to go through. If you look at this graphic, you can see that's what we use for the Future Ready's library framework. There are 8 research-backed components in the wedges surrounded by examples of actions that librarians can take to meet each of those future-ready goals. So in preparing the library plan over the last year, I analyzed our library program through these different pieces to determine where we should focus our efforts, because of course we cannot focus on all 8. We don't forget them, but we need to pick out the priority areas. So in an analysis of our current library program, when I began crafting this plan, looking at the status quo, I thought I'd give you just a little just like a baseline of where we're at with our library. So we have 8 school libraries. We have 13 part-time library aides who run those libraries, 1 part-time shared library and technology assistant, and then me as the full-time certified library media specialist serving as library coordinator overseeing those 8 libraries. So together our team teaches weekly lessons to our kindergarten through 4th grade students, teaches lessons every other week to our 5th through 8th grade students, facilitates weekly checkouts to grades K through 8, and then welcomes hundreds of students and staff into the library each week at the high school to use our resources, books, and/or library spaces. We provide technology needs and support for our learners. We provide about 169,000 physical library items in our collections, and we help circulate, collect, and maintain thousands of curriculum items as well. There are many strengths in our library program. By far, our largest strength is our passionate library staff. We also have dedicated library times, ensuring that student access is continuous to our library resources. And we also have robust infrastructure regarding access to book and technology resources. There are 2 areas for growth. First, to establish a practice of regular collection updates, and then to develop a standards-aligned scope and sequence for those library lessons and enrichment opportunities. So if we go back to that wedge, narrowing in our priority areas, we're looking at the use of space and time, as well as curriculum instruction and assessment. And then going on down to our first big goal, that is to strengthen our collection development practices to better meet the needs of learners and staff in our changing spaces. This includes preparing for a reconfigured elementary and middle schools. As you can imagine, a lot of work will need to go into shifting collections around over the next couple of years, including integrating 5th grade collections at the elementary schools, adding a 6th grade collection at the middle school, configuring Silverbrook's physical library space to meet the needs of K-5 learners, developing the new Jackson Elementary Library, and then at all of our sites, improving wayfinding signage and book labeling, improved resource promotion to staff, rotating book displays, establishing collection updating procedures with procurement and weeding practices, dynamic shelving at all of our sites to improve visibility of our collections, and then finally updating virtual library spaces and streamlining resource access. So you can see a little bit more details in those action steps as well as the timeline later on in the plan. Our second goal is to develop a well-organized K-12 library scope and sequence. As we reconfigure buildings, this is a great opportunity to look at our current practices. This work will include determining priority standards to guide our scope and sequence work, partnering with teachers to see how the library can support new curriculum initiatives, topics, and timing, developing a more uniform library experience between sites so that our students are having a more consistent library experience depending on, or irregardless of whichever site they're at. Creating intentional passive programming to enrich the learner experience at the middle school and high school levels as well. Okay, there's again more details in the action steps and in the timeline if you are interested. We have a lot of work ahead of us. The plan also includes state and national standards for libraries, as well as district library policies and administrative guidelines. Okay. Whew. Tried to keep it shorter than Lenny. I think we did pretty well, Tim.
So I think that the nice part when you talk about the overarching piece of the plan is you will see pieces of this plan come back in the future. So we talked about the scope and sequence piece. That is a curricular piece that will actually come back to our curriculum committee, then back to the board after that feedback piece. Obviously, if there are facility needs or other things, you would see that through our capital maintenance or through our technology purchase and so forth. This really, while it doesn't seem like a lot, redoing your collections for K-5 and 6-8 and 9-12. This is something that, as you have seen in board updates and stuff, is things that have been starting to be done behind the scenes. And as we look at reconfiguring our collections and making sure that we have viable resources for our kids to utilize, both in print and online, this kind of outlines what that would look like. But then we will open it up to any questions that you have this evening.
Great. Any questions, board members? Mr. Pickler?
Well, I do think it does seem like a lot of moving parts there. So thanks for the summary. Minor question, there was the note on the average publication age being 2008, so like 17 years old. I'm just curious if there's a standard as to what, like how old are we targeting?
Yeah, so there's like nothing written in stone, but certainly we want our nonfiction to be at least like the last 10 years as an average age. And then for our fiction titles, certainly the more recent, usually the more relevant and exciting for our kiddos to read.
Yeah.
Yeah. We still, of course, have lots of classics and books that just stand the test of time. And as part of our collection development practices, we do look at the condition of those and determine whether or not they are worth keeping in the collection if they have been circulating, or if we need new copies, if they've gotten pretty worn or musty. So generally, we'd like the higher the age, certainly the better. Mm-hmm. Or the more recent the age, you know what I mean.
So tell us in the age of computers. I think this plan is great. You know, the idea of, well, why do we need books anymore? We've got computers. There's got to be a great answer to that. I'd like to hear what you'd have to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have many students and staff, but definitely many students who prefer reading a hardcover book. We also know that there's plenty of research, too, that shows that reading a physical book can be really beneficial. Nothing against reading a book on the computer. That's a great choice as well, and we do offer online resources for our students, too. I do know, like, when we have our ELA classes visit the libraries, oftentimes the teachers will prefer having the students be on a hardcover book so that they maybe don't get distracted by some of the other things that might be on their computers. Both are very viable options, but certainly there's still a very high need for print resources.
Well, that person is one of the reasons why, because if I'm on a computer, I lose focus because there's so many other things. So I appreciate that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Other questions?
I just wanted to add, I had brought this up at the curriculum committee too, but you know, moving forward, as we're shifting books to different buildings and whatnot, kind of keeping in line with a lot of the work we did with the book clubs, where we had already evaluated a lot of those books that were having the age-appropriate books and the age-appropriate libraries moving forward. So.
And I think the nice part about that, when we reevaluate, Pam came in as we started talking about that, is we have a long-established process in our library of using professional journals. This movement of libraries will help us force that sooner than later, because there is the end date of we physically have to move the books. I heard Joe volunteer to help move the books because there's a lot going on there, but that idea that we're going to use that same process, no different. When Pam uses her professional journals, she reviews them, I review them before we order them now. We would employ that as we move items around the district over the next couple of years.
That's great. So as for next steps, it sounds like this will come back to the board for approval. It gets submitted then, if I understand it, to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction.
That
Would be
is
the next step. Okay. And we will see this back on a future agenda. Any final questions? Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it. Thank you for your work on this plan.
Thank you.
We next move to the high school configuration review process, and Superintendent Wimmer will guide us through this topic.
Seems like the word reconfiguration is the theme of tonight. So recall that we did a lot of work last year around what should a process look like, and we received information via survey of our student, staff, and immediate families to help guide us in components of process. So the board at that time talked about tackling that in chunks. First, prove to us as a board that it is worth the emotion that asking this question brings up in our community. So I kind of mapped out those pieces. They give us ideas around engagement, and when you get to that piece of, yes, it's worthy of exploring that. So I mocked up just kind of taking that feedback. And again, we sunset this work during summer because engagement with our families is a little bit lower in summer than when they come back to school. So we were very purposeful in taking that pause and bringing this back for the board to determine what the process will be over the year, to examine and how deep they want to examine that question. So I've made a couple points here. So in that first section, taking us through fall and December is kind of that learning piece. All those different buckets of learning, whether it's the academics, co-curriculars, athletics, the enrollment, which contributes to the financial analysis, all those elements kind of taking place over some fall, winter board meetings, if you will. So then the board can be in a place, are there next steps? Do we need to engage in some next steps to further examine? And then how do we plan for community survey and some engagement opportunities? Again, we wanted to hold ourselves accountable to high engagement, just as we had with the facilities plan in those pieces. So this is holding true to kind of that prior desire to learn a little bit more before you frame going a little bit more full with a community process. Does that still hold true to the board? Does that work? I would tee up these presentations for you to dig into.
Observations, questions on that? I think the challenge was, we said the board policy that had been on the books really suggested lots of opportunity for learning and for community engagement. This seems to meet those themes. When I look at the overall timeline, none of this is rushed, but it does move forward at an appropriate pace.
And it gives those breaks between, for the board to examine and determine, are you willing to take a next step? So in that next one then, framing what is that community engagement and hosting community forums, focus groups, because there's different impacts, for specific sports or athletes, or, so many of our teams are already co-opt, our co-curriculars are already together. There might be some unique focus groups with different impacts, so creating those opportunities, and then reviewing and launching a community survey, and then reviewing kind of all that feedback and synthesizing it from your focus groups as well as the survey. And then having an opportunity for you to then dig in more. Alongside that, I've nested the curriculum and policy committee dates that are key dates if there's implications for any programs or any policies associated with any of that. But it really then gives you, after you hear from your community and kind of what they're thinking, what they're saying, some time to digest, and then go in depth into discussion. There's a lot of discussion opportunity in there, and a pretty lengthy runway of that, so that you can dig into those pieces. Our board members, just like with the facilities process, would be engaged alongside the community in taking the survey, in witnessing and participating in facilities, or not facilities, but engagement opportunities, much like facilities. We did a lot of roundtables, a lot of different things. So you've got those checks and balance points. And then really it's taking then, is the board interested in entering a decision-making window? And if so, I'm just projecting a large window. The board, you will have been engaged in this for over 6 months. One of the things we heard in our survey was, don't drag out the decision, drag out if you're gonna do something, and be thoughtful if you have to change course. So that might get a little bit tighter based on kind of where the board feels, but it gave plenty of opportunity. We also could look at a structure of different work sessions if that was lending itself to a process, and we can kind of frame that at each point. So there's a reframing point in December. There's a reframing point after you hear kind of the initial layer of community feedback where you can kind of frame. But I think having a targeted overall process would be beneficial. That puts you really in kind of discussions and then taking any action if you needed, so that you could, if you needed to change, and again, there's no predetermined outcome. That's the biggest thing I always have to combat. I'm like, we're exploring a question and we're committed to doing that with our community. So then if any action was needed, you have 16 months, well over a year, to plan and line up with the reconfiguration of the district if there were any change. Because if there were, and again, that's a big if, I don't know how many times I can say that, you have a ton of work to do, whether it's, just So what's our, what are we going to stick with for, a mascot? What are our colors? What are this? You're all, in essence, designing a new school, if you will, if that's what occurs. So making sure there was plenty of room to do that work before anything was done. So just interested in thoughts, the checks and balances that gives you points as a board, what you want to see more or less of in this. Just open to that feedback so that we can communicate with our community around kind of where we're thinking for process and timeline.
Board members, any initial thoughts? Joel?
I mean, I think the timeline looks pretty good. I like kind of taking different topics individually at each meeting initially, and then getting the further community engagement. I think based on what that feedback is from the community, maybe the decision-making process could be shortened, as you mentioned, that February through April timeframe. So I think it looks good, and I think if it were to happen, there was something earlier with it potentially being next year. I think that's way too fast.
No, yeah.
So-
I think that's what we
Yeah.
heard when we surveyed, like, just don't make a decision and then implement something right away. To your point, if you feel like we could shorten up some of the discussion and action, you could actually extend your engagement into the January, February window, and we could have that expand a little bit. I think we are good with either recommendation. It's just lending itself to enough kind of processing and discussion time. So if you'd like me to extend that engagement window, I could easily adjust this January, February, and still keep you on that trajectory. Or if you want to make any kind of decision earlier rather than later, I'm open for that too.
I think that's a good idea to say this is fluid and can be adapted. I think to Mr. Pickler's point, if we engage in community engagement, and there are a lot of differing viewpoints, there are many things to explore, we wouldn't want to shortchange that, certainly. My question there would be, let's say we engage in that process, and I'm not even going to speculate, there's a group or two that really could be negatively impacted by this, but we just don't hear a lot from them. I mean, there are ways where we can attempt to proactively reach out, correct? That would be a thought.
Absolutely. So in that initial, when you talk about focus groups, I would be talking very specifically. I think the top of mind piece is convening all your athletes for teams that are not currently co-opt, and what that looks like and what are those implications, understanding the implications for WI, our conferences, all of those pieces, and digging in. So regardless of kind of a community-wide forum, we would be targeting those groups and opportunities along the way as well.
Other thoughts, questions? Chad?
No, I think that the timeline looks very reasonable. I think the community involvement part of it is essential to whatever decision we come up with, since it's such a huge impact on the community in general. So I just want to make sure we don't abbreviate that more than what it is.
I think I'd be really happy to stretch that a little bit into February, so we could have kind of just a larger piece for that. Like I said, we were unsure how many times then, if you're involved in that and you've kind of had this year of study, how many sessions do you need as a board for kind of discussion and decisions once you get to that point? So if you're okay with me shortening up kind of those discussions and extending a couple more weeks into February, some of those engagement opportunities, I think that would be very well received by our community.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's general agreement. Chad?
I was just thinking the February and March dates, the end of February and then the March dates. I would assume if we don't have adequate community engagement prior to that, we'll get plenty of it at those meetings.
Most likely.
Well, and what I appreciate is if it turns out we get into this and wow, this is a stickier knot than we thought, we'll extend as it needs to be. We don't want to drag this out for years and years, but this plan will be adaptive.
So what I can do very easily is almost like the high school process where they were looking at potentially changing that graduation. I can, in our district news, alert our families and our community who receive that. We can do a press release. We're looking at this. This is what that timeline and that process is shaping up to be. If you have any feedback, connect with me around that, just so we're always kind of letting them know our door's open and keeping that on their radar. So I'll do those pieces and start that communication, but I'll stretch this out just a smidge on the engagement side, and we'll go from there.
I think we had really good results as it relates to community engagement from the referendum process that we had. And I'm not saying this needs to mirror it exactly, but I think we should utilize those lessons learned as to what worked really well. I know this was a topic that actually came up during those referendum discussions. And so how can we build on that to build community engagement?
Perfect. We'll put together as one of our planning pieces when we get in there. I've got in December, if we're planning for engagement, we will bring an entire communications and engagement plan forward at that time for us to dig into. Again, a lot of lessons learned, a lot of feedback from people, and kind of letting us know what their preferences are for future.
I guess my last comment would be I do think that January timeline for that does make sense, because if we began that in December, let's say, that's a tricky time.
You lose that.
Yeah.
You lose that. People have other competing interests during the holidays. And again, you've got those pauses. You've got a 2-week break for schools. It's better when you're just fully engaged, refreshed, and back kind of in the frame of being in school. So I will amend that slightly with based on your feedback. I will put a news item out that'll go tomorrow in District News. We'll prepare a press release around that discussion, just kind of inviting people who have opinions about that, thoughts, questions, to start engaging with me directly, and then we'll go from there on these pieces. You'll see them on upcoming board meetings.
Any other questions, thoughts? All right, we appreciate the update and the work. Our next item is career and technical education updates. We invite Mr. Harder back to the podium. We should have given you residency at the podium tonight.
I'll sit closer next time. Yeah, I could use a break in between. Good evening, board members. It is the time of the year where we often bring not a huge slate, but a variety of changes to our career and technical education program. And this is driven by a couple of different things. Number one, changes in just business and industry through our advisory committee. Number two, through our teaching staff and their own professional development. And then number three, our relationship with Moraine Park Technical College, where our students have access to numerous credits and classes every single year taught on our campus by our high school teachers, where our high school teachers are not just certified K-12. They also have to be certified through the Higher Education Council. And so we have a advisory committee that meets on a regular basis. That is a large overarching advisory committee. So that is something that we use from everything from what we call career-ready practices, which are our work-based learning skills, simple things as our focus has been the last year to support not only our ACT scores around writing, but the idea of how do I communicate professionally in the work environment. And so that has been one of the skills that has been provided as a piece of feedback from our advisory committee at that point in time. This year, we will also do some subcommittees around our education and our interior design pathways, looking at tweaking and making some changes in alignment there, some additional TC credit pieces. And then we will open up 3 similar advisory committees around our I'm trying not to use the word reconfiguration, but I'm going to, of the building up at the high school related to our health sciences areas. And so even though that's a science set of classes, we do treat that health sciences pathway that we offer here as a career and technical education piece. So myself and Mrs. O'Brien work with them. Also our manufacturing and our graphics areas who will be affected by that space change and move up at the high school. So those will be our overarching pieces for the year. After the last year, we've gone through a couple of different things. And some of them are as simple as these that we are recommending. These will all come back to the board for approval as individual items next time as we do that and go through. The first thing we are looking at adding to changing some course prerequisites, some additions for our students to make sure that our students have the skills when they go into the upper level classes. So a true career pathway has an introductory style class, a middle class, and a capstone class, or at least an introductory and a capstone class. And then we look at our capstone class sometime as the introductory off to higher education. Let that be Moraine Park, let that be another 2-year school or a 4-year school. So to help prepare our students as they go into these capstone or higher level classes for us, we're looking at adding a couple of prerequisites of introductory courses for a few classes. One being our metals course, adding that as a prerequisite or a concurrent class for welding too. There's a lot of overlapping and material and skills that are needed between those two. And then adding an introductory class of either graphics or photo video animation as a prerequisite for the yearbook. The other thing that we have been struggling in certain areas, just like other departments, is sometimes our capstone classes, we all have we don't have an infinite, we have a small group of students who will work their way through a pathway. And so the other recommendation from our tech ed team is to start an alternating class sequence with two of our capstone courses. One is TC Automation, and the other one is Engineering Design and Development. And if you were to go back and look at our enrollment in the courses we've run over the last couple of years, we've already started to get into an alternating pattern. In this case, we would recommend that in the 26-27 school year, we would offer the Engineering Design and Development class, and then in the 27-28 school year, we would offer the TC Automation and go back and forth. Those are often similar students who bounce back and forth. We just often don't get enough grouping of kids to offer that capstone class at the same time. And so the team's recommendation, just like we've seen in some of our other curricular areas, is to do that in an alternating offsetting year sequence at that point. So I'll
Mr.
pause
Huggers.
there with questions.
TC, what does that stand for? I'm sorry.
Technical college credit.
All right,
Sorry.
thank you.
So,
Nope.
Yep, those things I'm used to saying. So for you and our public guests, technical college credit, for us, that means they are earning credit at Moraine Park. That is our granting agency for us. So any questions on our tech ed changes?
Questions? Joe?
Just wondering if, there might be someone who's in their junior year who is looking at taking a course that's not offered next year because of this change.
Yep.
Do we
So that's
consider
where we
that?
started the pattern. Ironically, if you actually look this year, we are looking at the fact that EDD did not run, so it will run next year, which is why they chose to start with that. It actually naturally happened already at that point in time. And then by putting it in the course handbook at that point in time, our students know this up front versus, hey, we all signed up for this and oh, you and I didn't get that course and now we're out at that point in time.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We are looking at a course edition as a individual course. College 101 is a work-based learning. It is a professionalism course preparing students for Moraine Park, but also college as a whole. If you saw in this evening's Start College Now piece, we have students that often take that course at Moraine Park at the cost to the district. That is a requirement for every student who goes through an associate degree at Moraine Park that they take College 101. Our numbers continue to increase around Start College Now, and working with Moraine Park and some of our local teachers here and talking to other districts, by bringing this course in-house taught by one of our staff here and giving it an option, more than likely in a virtual format, but could be also face-to-face or a hybrid piece as we work through this. Our students have a local teacher to connect with. They, in essence, earned their college credit and their high school credit as an elective, and they have that ability to make that connection here on campus instead of taking it virtually and self-paced at that point in time. It's a course that could be taught by any of our career and technical education teachers. Besides it being a requirement for our students going on to Moraine Park to graduate, it also has many of those things for our students who are going on to higher education, from just what does it mean to go to college classes? What is college like? What is it like learning their learning management system? All those different pieces that are engaged in going on to higher ed. So that we would look at offering that as a section or multiple sections based upon enrollment here for our students at that point in time. The course would earn 0.5 elective credits for our high school students, and then students who successfully complete this course would earn 2 technical college credits at that point in time. This is a course that we can offer fall, spring, or summer semester to our students, whatever enrollment opportunities we have. And then here is the course description piece from Moraine Park. So the feedback from not only our students and our staff here, but also talking to other districts who offered it locally, they saw an increase in the students who were taking this, the success in being ready and understanding, hey, what does it mean for me to go to Moraine Park? As you saw, some of our students are not just taking our technical college credits, they're taking the Start College Now classes. So this will allow them access to that kicking off College 101 class sooner at that point in time.
Sounds like it's kind of reducing the barrier, the friction to them taking it,
Yes.
which would indicate greater enrollment. Is it restricted only to those students who intend to attend Marion your hand, Moraine Park Technical College.
It is not. We will not limit it. It could be for any kid. Yes, there will be things in there that are specific to this is how they do it at Moraine Park, but for the student who really wants to learn what higher ed is like or what technical college is like, they could certainly take that class also. There are many life skills and different pieces that are built in there around being successful at the next level that could pertain to any learning environment, from a work-based learning and apprenticeship program all the way through a 4-year program.
Other questions on that? All right.
All right, this is a course change and lengthen change, and this has been a lengthy process. You've seen some different steps through of changing some different pieces here for our business and IT program. As Moraine Park continues to change their programs, we are looking at combobulating one more time our entrepreneurship and business strategies course to a course called TC Business Strategies, and embedding entrepreneurial skills across all of our business courses. And interesting enough, the feedback from some of our advisory committee members is entrepreneurship needs to be part of every CTE course that we offer. And really, when you think of it, it is. We run an automotive program. We run a culinary restaurant up at the high school. So this would allow our students to earn the same number of college credits, really focus in on their business strategies courses, pick up their entrepreneurship pieces through other business courses, and allow them to take additional credits at that point in time. So in essence, our students are getting more of the meat and potatoes of it, earning the same number of college credits, and allowing them to take additional courses by moving this to a semester class at that point instead of a year-long class.
Questions? All right.
The next proposed change came out of our advisory committee for business and IT, and something that they've been studying over the last couple of years. We offer a personal finance course. It is now required in the state of Wisconsin to offer personal finance as a learning experience for students. We had that prior to that. Feedback from our business partners who come in and work on days, what we call reality days, is where students walk into the room, they are given, hey, here is your reality to the day, Tim. And it can be everything from this happened in your life to this job, to your insurance went up, to your car broke, you lost your house, or whatever, is that the content that students are learning, they aren't quite ready for in the 10th grade. It is more relevant to our students who are in 11th and 12th grade, and we find more success for those students in 11th and 12th grade when they are in that course. There's a little more relevant experience. I'm driving, I deal with insurance, I'm looking at going on to college, I might be looking for an apartment when I graduate, and so forth. And so that feedback from our advisory committee and our teachers was to look at offering this as an 11th and 12th grade course only instead of 10th through 12th grade. As this course exists, and we have students who have already started their 4-year plan, our recommendation would be that this change would start for the class of 2030 when they enter high school next year at that point in time. Everything about the course stays the exact same. It's really just we would push it to our students where we feel they would be more successful with the content and have more relevant experience in grades 11 and 12.
So really same course, but just shifting when
they can
when
take
it's given. Okay. Other questions? Right.
All right. And then the last bigger item on here is as you know, I mentioned we offer a very robust culinary pathway for our students here at the high school that ends in capstone courses running the student restaurant, the Nifty Nibble, which is opening soon, thank goodness. So I have a place to go for lunch Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And it's a great opportunity for our students. We utilize a nationally recognized curriculum called ProStart. We have from the beginning of starting that program 13 years ago with ProStart when that came out. They have now moved on to the third version of their curriculum materials. This curriculum partners with our technical college credit courses that are offered through Moraine Park. There's a direct piece through that. Our students can also earn a certification around restaurant management and management of employees when they finish the ProStart culinary pathway through Culinary 1 and 2 at the high school. That certification is also recognized by the state of Wisconsin, so you'll often hear us talk about the CTE incentive certifications that the district can offer our students. That is a work-based certification that employers in the state of Wisconsin have given feedback that those are the skills and knowledge we want our kids to have. The state does incentivize the district for offering those. Our district then turns around and provides and uses that funding to support our CTE programs as we move forward. So as they've updated the curriculum, the team's recommendation is to move to the third edition out of the second edition of the Pro Start curriculum. There is a website linked in our tonight's presentation that is on Board Docs that talks about the updated resource information. A lot of it is built around the experiences that kids have, the different labs and so forth as they go through. It is really around that restaurant management and culinary arts piece. You can see an image of those two there. It is a textbook, a lab manual, and a teacher resource for each of those, level 1 and level 2. We will be putting those out for public viewing through the public library starting on Thursday, and here that will be in the district news that goes out Wednesday, just like we do for all of our other curriculum materials. And if we do have additional feedback from our community, we would share that with the board. This is the budget breakdown for what that were to look like. We would have the ability to start integrating that later in the into the second semester term of some of our courses here as we go from there. So a total cost of just above $8,000 with an approximate shipping cost in there. Based upon the type of course and the use of the materials, we are looking at a classroom set, not a checkout to Tim and Chad permanently for the whole year, and then a different class has to have theirs checked out, more of a classroom resource piece, and then checked out as need be, along with one teacher resource. The district would utilize both our CT curriculum budget that we allocate through Fund 10 and our CT incentive funding to cover the costs of those products if approved. And then we would order those based upon board approval and bring them in the system at that point in time. We will use our version 2 of those textbooks for the next year or two, at which point in time we would then look to either give those curriculum materials to students or see if there is a resale value at that point in time. Often, based upon the changes in CT, there's not that much of a resale value in certain books. However, we would look at that point in time and also.
Questions on that? Would seem to make sense to keep that resource current.
Yes.
But appreciate it.
You bet.
We'll
And then
consider
I just have a slide of the proposed changes. We would bring these back as individual items for you next time. However, the board would like them aligned in that process, and then we would go from there. And I'll entertain any final questions.
Great. Final questions. Superintendent Wimmer, if we suggested putting this on the consent agenda, would that be appropriate?
I wrote myself a note. Can I put these on the consent agenda?
I was going to ask the same question.
You would have 3 pieces related to curriculum. You'd have, again, Melanie had foreshadowed kind of shifting a prerequisite on a class, as well as the library plan and the CTE updates. I recommend all 3 on a consent agenda.
Board members, any concerns with that approach? No. All right. Seeing none, why don't we take it up that way? And if there are questions, we can always take it off consent agenda. And if there are questions in the meantime, we certainly can reach out.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you for your presentation.
Very much.
Appreciate it. We move now to our action items, and these are related to policies. So Superintendent Wimmer, I think you're going to help walk us through these. First, we have policy series review of the 800 series, which are school community relations, and this is a 3rd reading.
Correct. We would have been poised for action last time. We just had a couple board members out and just wanted to respect having a 3rd reading. So you've seen these. They've been in front of you for months. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to entertain them. Otherwise, we're just seeking a motion to approve the recommendations as presented.
Great. Board members, questions or comments on these policies?
I
Go ahead,
have
please.
a question and maybe a clarifying. So the use of facilities, I know that has been a hot topic and brought up. I see the fee schedule in here. I just want to clarify if this is one that we are voting on tonight, that the school.
No. Let me just be real clear. It's right up
Okay.
in the notes. 830 is coming forward as a separate item on its own. The only thing you're seeing is a list of current policies. If you look at the recommendations, there's some for no, there's some for changes, and there's some for revision. So you do not see that one. We anticipate it coming forward in a next bucket.
Okay.
Yep.
I was looking at the list of what we're talking about. and
Yep,
I'm
you're
like,
looking at
wait
the
a-
full list of,
Yep.
those exist. And the
Yep.
only thing that we've taken action on thus far in relation to that one was to pass along the savings right away.
Perfect.
So that is coming, we did a little bit more deeper work in policy around shifting some buckets. So you're gonna see that on a next agenda as a standalone.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
So we can dig in.
Yep, thanks.
No, that was excellent
question.
clarification. Glad we paused for that. Any other questions? All right, since it's a 3rd reading, hearing none, I move to approve the recommendations for the 800 series policies, school community relations as presented. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. We have a motion and second to approve these, the recommendations for changes to the 800 series policies. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that motion carries. And then Superintendent Wimmer, the policy series review of the 900 series, which would be facilities development. This is a second reading.
Correct. The update to just follow a numbering format in those pieces, but there's simply one policy for retirement of facilities.
All right, this is a second reading, and we could, with a unanimous vote, correct me if I'm wrong?
This one is, this should also be labeled as a third reading. They
Oh,
came together.
My apologies.
That's okay.
Third, even better. So since this is a third reading, any questions on this recommendation? Hearing none, I would move to approve the recommendations for the 900 series policies, facilities development, as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. We have a motion and second to approve the changes to the 900 series as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Superintendent Wimmer, we appreciate you guiding us through that. We move next to our future agenda items. We start with our board meeting calendar. And on our board meeting calendar, we have our regular board meeting scheduled for October 27 and then another on November 10th, both at 5:30 p.m., scheduled to take place here at the Education Service Center. And we have a curriculum committee meeting scheduled for November 4th at 4:30 p.m., also here at the Education Service Center. We encourage the public to review the official meeting postings as the time or the date or the location may change. Any updates to the calendar? I believe I have that correct. Superintendent Wimmer.
You do have that correct. Just looking at the slate of work that we've gotten through with the 800 and 900 on policy, I would recommend that we actually don't need a November policy. We pick back up in spring as we analyze the 300 series related to instruction and programs. So one less meeting for the policy committee, if you will, if that's okay. There was no other policies on our docket for the year. That includes our ability to push any policies impacted by configuration conversations right into that scheme of work. So,
Sure, and as it relates to what Kelly was talking about before with regard to facilities, I mean, would that be compatible with that timing?
your facilities one will come back. It's already cleared all your committee work. You've done that. It's coming straight back to the board at your next meeting as a standalone. So you're fine on that. So nothing pressing
Great.
for committee. So I see 3 of my heads nodding on my committee that you're all okay with that. So I will
Right.
make that adjustment. Thank you.
Great. All right, thank you. All right, any last questions on the board meeting calendar? Then are there any other items for follow-up and communication? I think we had one with regard to that consent agenda item. I can't think of any others. Board members? All right. Well then, hearing none, we've reached the end of our planned agenda, and so it would be appropriate to consider a motion to adjourn. So I will make that motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you very much, Melanie. A motion and second to adjourn. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We stand adjourned, and we appreciate everyone attending in person or online and look forward to seeing you at a future meeting.